Welcome to the Empowered Podcast, episode 26. If it were a college student, it would probably be on its second victory lap. Thank you for tuning into the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells, and I'm so glad that you are here. Sorry we missed last week. I was working on a new project that I hope I'll be able to tell you guys about in the near future, but I was working on a project. I got really excited, and time got away from me, and all of a sudden, no podcast. So I apologize for that. And again, thank you for tuning in. I'm so excited that you are here. And this is the podcast that will help you develop, grow, and overcome the challenges that you are facing in your daily life today. And I am your host, Ellery Wells. In today's episode, I wanted to share the story of a college friend of mine. I think this is the first and maybe only, probably not only, but definitely the first college what do you call them? We're at this college at the same time. I guess, I don't even know what you'd call that. But we're at the college at the same time. His name is Todd Tramonte. And Todd decided that he wanted to start a real estate business in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Now, if you're not from Texas, or if you are not from the United States, because I know we've got listeners in about 75 different countries right now, Dallas-Fort Worth has about 8 million people in the area. It's a pretty big land area in the smack dab middle of Texas. And there have been real estate companies and real estate investing and buying and selling for hundreds of years. Literally, I think Texas, or that area was settled a few hundred years ago. So it's not a new industry, not a new business. And here's my friend Todd. He and I both went to Baylor together. He's a couple years older than I am, and he decided to start a real estate business in the middle of this huge metropolitan area, and I was kind of curious as to why. You know, a lot of the guests that I have on the show have varying levels of success. You know, it depends on how you define success and things like that, but many of them have online businesses. Some of them even have podcasts like this one. But Todd has a brick and mortar place. He has an office. He has employees, and they all have desks. You know, the audio is a little rough, but Todd's not used to doing things online like I am, or maybe not like you are. And so I wanted to get his perspective, you know, offline, how to build and grow businesses, and how to build, grow, and develop a team of people. And I'm excited to be able to share this interview that I had with him. It's a little bit older. I think I recorded it in December of 2013, maybe, because we talk about it being really cold, and we have had a very cold spring this year, but it was, I think, in December whenever we recorded this. So if we talk about, I think at one point we talked about de-icing his car, and just exactly how cold it was. Before we go into the interview, I did want to thank one person who left me a new iTunes review. That person's name is Sabas Flores. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but Sabas gave me a 5-star review and said, "Wow, it's such an empowering and wonderful podcast. Thanks so much for making this podcast and give hope for success." So thank you, Sabas, if you're listening to this. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to leave me not only the review, or not only the rating, but the review as well. And if you're out there listening to this and you have enjoyed the show, you like listening to me and my guests and learning from our experiences and hearing our stories, would you head over to empoweredpodcast.com? There's links there for iTunes, for Stitcher, and I think those are two of the main ones. Just will you click one of those, give me a subscribe. I'd love a 5-star review, but honestly, just any review, your honest opinion would be extremely welcomed and appreciated. And then if you want to tell somebody about the show, I'd really appreciate that as well. Oh, and before I forget, I get voicemails from listeners every once in a while, and I want to hear from you as well. If you go to empoweredpodcast.com, on your computer, you'll see on the right side, you'll see a blue bar where you can leave me a voicemail. You should be able to do it from your phone or anything like that. But I want to encourage you to leave me some feedback. Tell me what's up. Ask how things are going. Whatever, or leave your name, your podcast, or your blog, and an introduction to the Empowered Podcast. And I'd love to be able to feature you and share your story just a little bit right before we go into any sort of episode, or if it's that part at the beginning, I'd love to be able to share your story there too, or your voice there, I guess I should say. And before we go into the interview, one last thing. If you are writing and doing any sort of blog and you've hit any sort of roadblock, you're trying to figure out how to get a favicon, or you're trying to figure out how to get Google authorship up and running, we want to get indexed by search engines and things like that, I want to encourage you to head over to whatsnextblogging.com. They're a sponsor for the show, but they also provide short 5 to 10 minute video tutorials, just short videos that show you exactly how to do all kinds of things that have to do with blogging. It's all kinds of things and questions that I've had answers to, how to, work the Blueberry PowerPress plugin. That's a big one. As a podcaster, we're trying to make sure we get everything done online and up to where we can get it into iTunes and Stitcher, and Blueberry's one of those apps, But if you're building a blog or a website, I encourage you to go over to whatsnextblogging.com. Check that out. And if you go to whatsnextblogging.com/free, you can get a free video, and I highly suggest that you do that as well. Without much more delay, let's head to the interview with my friend, fellow Baylor alumni, Todd Tramonte. Thank you for tuning into the Empowered Podcast. Today I'm here with my friend and fellow Baylor alumni, Todd Tramonte of the Todd Tramonte Home Selling Team up in Dallas, Texas, where he runs a very successful and rapidly growing real estate business. How are you doing on this icy morning, Todd?
I'm doing well, just trying to get thawed out here in the office.
So Todd was just telling me before we started the recording, everybody, that it was 27 degrees in Dallas, Texas, and they've had ice for about a week, and that's not something that you usually see in Texas. So it's been pretty crazy there and here in Austin too. No ice, but it's cold here. So I wanted to have Todd on the show because he and I had gone to Baylor together. We were in the same fraternity together. He was a few years ahead of me and kind of charged the way through that, and we've both been Baylor fans this whole time and watching. And Baylor actually just got announced as the Big 12 champions, and we're both pretty excited about that. But I wanted to have Todd on the show because a lot of the people that I talk to start online businesses. Jim Stovall writes books and things like that. And I really wanted to get Todd's thoughts around starting a real estate business in a city with, 8 or 9, or a metropolitan area with 8 or 9 million people, what he's doing, how he decided to do that, and some of the things that has made him successful. So Todd, would you give us a little bit of a background about what you're doing now, and then we'll jump back in time a little bit and see what got you started?
Yeah, I'd love to. So where I am now is I've built very close to the business that I've kind of dreamed of since before I even left college. So I've currently got a residential real estate team, which on the surface sounds like kind of a small concept business, but when I tell you kind of where we started, that it'll make a little bit more sense. But I've got a team of folks that are dedicated and committed in specific areas of expertise. And that's rare in the real estate world. We can talk more about that later as well. But basically, each person on our team is specialized in a specific area of expertise, meaning we have agents that specifically work with buyers. We have agents that specifically work with sellers. We've got dedicated support staff that are focused on the contract portion or the marketing portion or the management of the team. And then really my primary role is to train and equip our team in the areas of sales and marketing and conversion. And I get to do the stuff that I really love, which is to lead our leaders, and to train and teach. And then I have the really a privilege to do the same and to train and teach other brokers and team leaders, and all across the country. So where we are now really is that, we do significantly more transaction volume and revenue volume than the average agent usually even aspires to. But ironically, in the world of high production real estate, we don't do near as much as we could because we just have a very deliberate plan for where we want to position ourselves in the marketplace. So our focus is on delivering the absolute maximum amount of value possible to the client and to be compensated at a higher level as well. And so that's kind of our wheelhouse, is not can we sell the most houses or produce the most dollars of revenue, but can we be as profitable as possible, build great relationships with our clients, and really, really deliver more value than any other real estate concept in the world. So that's a quick snapshot. Happy to answer any specific questions about that, or kind of tell you where we came from.
Well, my first question, and I like what you said, and you did lead me into a couple other questions, but my first question is, why real estate when Dallas has been around for a long time? Why go to Dallas, Texas, or the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex and say, I'm going to start a real estate company?
Yeah, because I was stupid. I mean, if that's a good enough short answer for you. Um, well, I mean, the longer answer is, I think as entrepreneurs, as business thinkers, as I would say sometimes, a lot of times we're just trying to figure every angle out. So we're trying to figure out, what market could I move to where there's a bunch of demand and there's very low competition and the price points are right and the turnover ratios are right. And those are all smart marketing, sales, business strategies. But very, very few of us can go create a utopian, scenario, step into it, execute on it, and everything works out well. Most of us are going to live in a specific place for reasons beyond business. Most of us are going to have family commitments and passions and desires outside of our core business or our core revenue generating business. So for me, we were at Baylor together, and my at the time fiance, soon to be wife, was getting a master's degree in accounting. I was getting a master's degree at the seminary in youth ministry and flipping houses on the side. And to be honest, Dallas ended up being a great area of opportunity for both of us. And real estate investment is really what I was doing, and for big accounting firms for her. We were originally from Houston, wanted to try something new, and so the next big chunk of opportunity up the road for us was Dallas. And really out of ignorance, I got into real estate investing and really, really enjoyed it and had some success, and so got my license and decided that ministry was something I wanted to do out of passion, not out of an obligation to get a paycheck. And so it started to fit well that real estate really allowed me to pursue my passions in other areas with a lot of flexibility and autonomy with my time and energy. And so it just kind of happened. And then as I started to have some success, I knew I wanted to build systems and I knew I needed some resources. So I bought a national franchise. And after a 5-year agreement with them, I realized that, my desires were more of building something of my own and creating a unique value proposition as opposed to just following someone else's plan. And so I got rid of the franchise and kind of went back to an independent brokerage model and built the brand we have now. And that's the 100-mile-an-hour version of it. But I would be honest with you to say it's not as though I was trying to exploit some market opportunity in the DFW area. It is very much a good old boy market for the most part. And I learned a lot of lessons early on how we had to overcome that and how there were some things that weren't worth the time, energy, and money to overcome, but there were some other areas of opportunity. And so we've kind of wiggled our way into a pretty good niche, right in what I would consider the sweet spot, kind of the warm middle of our market up here that is a pretty good area of opportunity.
No, Todd, you had mentioned going to seminary and things like that. And after talking to, I haven't released this many episodes, but I probably talked to a dozen or so fairly successful entrepreneurs like yourself. Would you agree with some of the comments that I've gotten from them that what you're doing now is maybe your way of ministering to people? So maybe you haven't really left the quote ministry. You're not maybe in a church every day, but do you feel like what you do and how you do it is your ministry?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and people have different approaches and different viewpoints, and certainly different belief systems. But I'm pretty clear and bold on mine that I'm a follower of Jesus, and so I'm going to be a follower of Jesus every day, wherever I am, and obviously screw up all the time. But so yeah, I do youth ministry a lot of times in the evenings and on the weekends, and hanging out with high school kids.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Young Life,
Yeah,
right?
with Young Life, exactly. Yeah. So I also have a huge opportunity, in the work environment as I'm leading some folks here in the office, to model wisdom and to model truth. And as an employer and as a leader, there's a lot of opportunities to certainly kind of mentor and coach folks in areas that are certainly outside of sales and marketing and support and management. Um, and that's given me really a significantly higher level of enjoyment and passion for building a business, and that I get to do much, much more than just try to buy and sell, to exchange value. We get to really invest in people's lives, and certainly have had others invest in my life as well. So I would caution anyone to have any sort of boundary between work and home or service. If you have a significant belief system that you live your life based on, um, that should be prevalent in every area of your life, and certainly you'll have the ability to have impact on others in those environments as well.
And just out of curiosity, you'd mentioned getting a master's degree in theology, I think it was. What was your undergrad degree in? Was it, and I have a reason for asking that question. If it was business, did it help prepare you for starting a business? If it was something else, how did you learn it?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I changed my major 5 or 6 times and still somehow graduated on time. But no, I ended up with a communications degree, which, depending on how you look at it, could be the most or least valuable degree in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
At Baylor, it was a very expensive degree that on paper did absolutely nothing for me. But I had always known that kind of wanted to own and run a business. I grew up with a serial entrepreneur for a father and an elementary school teacher for a mother. So it's funny. I was right. Every once in a while you get a speaking opportunity and it's kind of a quick turnaround. You got to write your own bio. It's really awkward third person bio on yourself. I was doing one of those here not too long ago, and I don't know, a couple of years ago probably. And a quick first sentence came out was, Todd Tramonte is the son of a salesman and a teacher. And it was funny because I just never really thought of it that way, but that is so much of kind of the passions that I have clearly come from growing up in a house where my father was just a top notch sales guy. He was top tier, one of the top, 1, 2, or 3 sales guys at IBM for years, and then my mother is just a world class elementary school teacher. So I grew up around a lot of creativity and ideas and business development, more failures than successes, but I think that's where more lessons are learned. So anyway, I had kind of a spirit or a mind for entrepreneurship before I even knew what that word was, before that became popular. So I was an entrepreneurship major. I was a general kind of business major, psychology major twice, and ended up in communications. And then uh, got about halfway through a Master of Divinity with a focus on youth ministry and education, and may go back and finish that someday. But to answer the implied question there, I learned a tremendous amount in college, but most of that was learning about relationships outside of the classroom and learning about leadership. Very, very little of anything in a classroom in the college setting prepared me or equipped me really in any way to start, run, grow, manage a business in really any way whatsoever.
Well, and not to dog on traditional university education at all, but I think most people probably graduate with a degree or a background that they don't necessarily
Yeah.
use. For me, my degree is in psychology, and I'm in sales, and I write, and of course, do the podcast. So if that wasn't the intent, but that does lead me to my next question. If you didn't learn the skills to uh to start a business, recruit teammates, to you're just telling me, and I've seen pictures on Facebook about how you've renovated the office. That took some ingenuity in doing. Where did you learn how to do all of that stuff? So if someone's listening to this episode and they said, "Well, I've thought about doing real estate too," can you tell them how you did it, and maybe they could follow a similar path and start their own uh, real estate business, whether it's in a small community or a large one?
Yeah, I mean, I can. I'm happy to share what I did, and I have the privilege of being able to, be a consultant and somewhat of a coach for small brokerage owners and team leaders all across the country. And so this is something that I help people do quite frequently. So again, to try to give you a short version of that, I would say to anybody considering starting any kind of business, real estate or otherwise, that there's a phenomenal university of information in your local library. On Amazon.com, there are books that have changed the way that I think, changed the way that I operate, and made $1 million shifts in my business. And some of my all-time favorites, just to kind of rattle off some, or some of the old traditional favorites like Think and Grow Rich. Um, I think the E Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber is one of the best out there for somebody thinking about starting a business. I get invited to a lot of lunches from people who have friends that want to start businesses and ask me if I would be willing to talk with them. And that's a book that I usually bring and just give people. It should be a prerequisite to starting a business. I love the book The Go Getter. I really like Rhinoceros Success. Um, the Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol, Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I could go on and on and on and give you, 500 books. But I would say, who knows what the average college education costs right now, but for $1,000 or less on Amazon.com and used books, you could be the absolute most informed and equipped person in almost any field in your market in under a year. I really
Yeah,
absolutely believe that. I would
I do
I
too.
would put somebody that's really studied and dedicated themselves to relevant, niche specific learning up against an MBA or a PhD in the same field. In the real world of business, I'd take the Amazon.com guy against the Wharton School guy almost every time.
Do you agree with I don't know who said it at all, but with the idea that if you read I think it's three books on a specific topic, you could be considered an expert. Have you heard that
Yeah,
phrase?
I have, and three might be a little light, but I think the point that's being made there is the average person hasn't done anything to make themselves more of an expert. The average guy's just trying to survive the day, especially in the work environment. The average guy's just trying to lay low, not get fired, and get a check. But people who jump on podcasts and try to commit themselves to growth aren't the average person. So if somebody's listening to this, they're already in the top of the class, whether they know anything or not. The sheer desire and the effort is going to put you out ahead of most of your competition. The reality is, competition is one of the most exaggerated words on the planet. Most people are clueless of who they're competing with and aren't even trying to compete. Again, they're just trying to make a dollar and get home. So the the intimidation factor in the world of getting into business um, is dramatically to the benefit of the guy that's already in, because um, it's not as difficult as so many would like to make it look. Now, of course, it's a fight every day, but some of the barriers to entry to owning a business or to beginning are not near what so many people perceive them to be. You got to work at it every single day, but anything worth having is worth working at. But so many people are just so scared of that first step that they'd be blown away at the amount of resources that are out there if you're just willing to take action with some tenacity and some perseverance. But the core answer to your question is, the places to really get the tools and equipment to be equipped to really do, to pursue your passion in the area of business. I would say absolutely number one on that list is to get some really good books, read with a discerning mind, throw out the junk, keep the really good nuggets of wisdom, build a philosophy, know your core values, understand the principles that you're willing to fight and die for, and the ones that you're willing to be flexible on, and get out there, take some action, make some mistakes, and fix it as you go, and just refuse to quit ever.
I had this question from one of your first comments, and then I'll ask that one, and then we'll skip to some of the other questions that I have. Instead of serving everyone, and you actually used the word niche too, how did you decide everyone is not my target market? This specific subset, I think you called it the sweet spot or the warm middle or something. How did you find out or figure out that that's what you wanted to do instead of trying to serve all 8 or 9 million people in the Metroplex?
Well, I'm never going to claim to be the smartest guy you've ever interviewed, so I'll just tell you the honest answer is, at first I tried to be everything to everybody, and that was fairly exhausting. So, I mean, there was a time early in my real estate career where I was putting 30 or 40,000 miles a year on a car, but never leaving town. Um,
Wow.
and just chasing every single opportunity that's out there. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can get yourself 4 or 5 years worth of experience and education in 1 year if you're willing to just run and gun. And I was young and didn't have kids yet, and so I didn't know any better, to be honest with you. But the answer that you're looking for is, at some point I had to sit down and say, okay, I can't make the money that I want to make. I can't be efficient with my team. I can't lead others if I'm just spread so thin at any given moment that that this whole thing can break and snap. So I had to start learning. Okay, let's look back at the business and let's say, where have we been most successful? What kind of clients have we enjoyed working with? What kind of clients have we provided the most value to? Where have we been most profitable? Where have our costs been most reasonable? Where do we see the market trending going forward, and where do we see the opportunity sustaining itself? Starting to ask some fairly analytical questions, but really just some common sense, questions, and organizing those answers in a way that we can move forward with some wisdom, and build what I consider one of the most important things in the business, and that's consistency and predictability. I own my own business, therefore there's no, entity paying me a fixed salary. So how can I create consistency and predictability so that I know what I'm going to make in the next 12 months within a given margin, and I don't have to stay up at night worrying about that every night. So part of it was jumping in, getting after it, looking back, and tweaking and narrowing and improving based on past failures and successes. So, if you find yourself for the third time working with a certain kind of client and it's miserable for the third time, it's a pretty good sign that that's not the best kind of client for you. If you find yourself for the third time working in a certain area or in a certain niche or a certain client type, and you find it that you just really, really enjoy it, then that's the kind of thing that you want to build your business on. If you're getting started and you don't know what those things are, there's some fairly simple ways to at least get a step or two closer to that, and simply to ask yourself, what personality type do I get along with best? What kind of person am I most? Do I have the most commonality with? Where building rapport and a bond is going to be the easiest. What's the niche in the market that's going to be most profitable, or that's going to probably be the most active in the next 3 to 5 years? Those kinds of questions are smart to ask up front, only if they don't keep you from taking action right away.
And you had said it in that first round of questions that you asked, and I think it's pretty important. It was, who am I providing the most value to?
Yeah.
And That's such a good question. I've been sitting here trying to listen and also trying to reflect on that question myself. Who am I? Who am I as a writer and a podcaster providing the most value to? And you're doing the same thing with the in the real estate market. And whoever you're providing the most value to probably find the most value in you as well.
Mhm.
If you're providing value to them, you're not just the transactional guy. Oh, it's that dude that sold me the house a few years ago. It's Todd and his team who helped me find a home because of the value that you bring. So, if you're listening to this and you're looking at starting a business or looking to make a transition, who are you providing the most value to? And you're going to find that they probably value you even more.
Yeah, and
So
you can
I got to think about that one.
yeah, you can take it a step further too, and whoever you provide the most value to is highly likely to return the most value back to you. So I am not a fan of discounting and price competition. And this is coming from a guy who at one point owned a flat fee discount real estate franchise. So I've tried it both ways. But I would say, if you want to be compensated at a high level, then you've got to be focused on value. And I speak every year at a career day for the high schools in our area. And every year I give the same speech. New group of students. It's always high school juniors that are thinking about, do I go to college or do I jump straight into a job? And I give a presentation on value. And the summary of it is I'll ask them, how much are you guys worth an hour? And of course, they all have some opinion. And the cocky ones will say $20 an hour, $30 an hour, whatever. But basically, what I tell them is that you're worth $0 an hour. Your time is of no value to me as an employer whatsoever. The only thing that's valuable to me is if you can provide value to me or to my customers. So if I own an ice cream shop, you standing in my shop doesn't do anything for me. If you make my clients happy, sell them a lot of ice cream, upsell them to the sprinkles and the second scoop and all that stuff, now your time is generating revenue for me. And based on how much revenue you generate for me, I can now compensate you as some portion of that. So let's say you generate $25 an hour for me after I pay the light bill, the insurance, the mortgage, the taxes, and all that crazy stuff. Maybe I can give you $8 or $9 an hour. But if you can find a way to generate $30 an hour for me, now I've got $5 more every hour that you work. Am I going to be willing to give you another one or two or three of those dollars? Probably. So, in its simplest form, the more value you provide, the more value will be returned to you in the form of compensation. Well, you can expand that into massive scale and look at, huge entities with stocks and dividends, or you could just look at small business like mine, where if I've got a team member or an agent or a support staff person that is just killing it, and their effort is generating more clients, more referrals, higher dollar average sale, they're going to get a bonus, they're going to get a raise, they're going to get some incentives, they're going to get increased opportunity. So as business owners or entrepreneurial minded folks, we've got to obsess over this exchange of value. And we've got to focus on giving more value, giving more value, giving more value. And we will find that value is returned to us in a pretty amazing way. And it's okay to expect that value to be returned, and it's okay to organize your business in a way that you respectfully demand that value is returned to you. But that's something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that's how, as a real estate team, our fee structure is usually 1.5 to 2 times what the average agent in our market is doing, but the amount of value that we provide to the client is 3 or 4 times, what the average client is receiving.
Awesome. And Todd, being on the Empowered podcast, you might have guessed that we would talk a little bit about empowering yourself, empowering others. What does the word empower mean to you?
Well, it's so funny because I was talking to one of my team members is getting a master's in accounting yesterday, right now, and yesterday he was doing a final presentation on organizational leadership or organizational behavior, and I was joking with him. I was like, make sure you get the word empowerment in there 3 or 4 times. Um, And I was totally kidding with him just because I think it's a word that a lot of people have kind of cheapened to be kind of a warm and fuzzy organizational term. You have to empower your people, but I don't think people give it a lot of thought and effort. I think we have the ability to lift people up and put them in positions to succeed or to kind of tear somebody down. And a lot of times in a business environment, um, doing nothing is a way to kind of tear somebody down. It's to cause them to question their value and their efficiency and their abilities. So in the work environment, for me, empowerment is to remind people every day of their abilities, give them the opportunity and the room to succeed and to fail. And in literal terms, to give them, kind of power over their own future. And a lot of my team members are independent contractor type folks that we still provide a lot of direction and leadership for. So when I say that I want to empower them, I want to equip them with physical tools and resources, but I also want to give them the mental and psychological tools they need to be, unafraid um, and free to pursue their wildest dreams and goals.
And Todd, when you decided to go into real estate, what kind of, or especially to, actually this question could have multiple answers that I'll tie back to, I think, a really great one. When you decided to go into real estate, and then when you decided to sell the national franchise and start your own, what kind of resistance did you face? Who gave you pushback, and what was that like?
I would say 9 out of 10 people thought I was crazy. Um, but that's typical. 9 out of 10 people always want to take the safe route. Um, Obviously, within the franchise organization, other owners and things thought I was nuts. Um, uh, my wife is an awesome support, and she's always with me and willing to, jump in the fight. And the resistance was simply to change to something new, to starting back at zero. Um, the unknown, all those things. Um, but I was pretty firm on knowing that the franchise model I was in was not the direction I wanted to go. It wasn't really in alignment with my core beliefs and personality and goals for innovation in the industry and for leadership. So it wasn't as difficult a decision for me. But if I had been waffling, the opinions of others would have been fairly destructive for me in that scenario.
And what did you do to face those head on and overcome them to get to where you are now?
That's a good question. I would say, once I had kind of committed towards building something new, it was kind of a make the decision, lock it in, and don't look back. And that's kind of what we did. And then from there, really, it was just laying every single option under the sun on a table and saying, do I want to buy another franchise? Do I want to build something fairly generic? Do I want to brand heavily? Do we want to brand myself? Do we want to brand the model, the unique selling proposition? I mean, I had written a book. Um, I had, which eventually we partnered with a publisher and ended up being a bestseller in a couple of different categories. So we had a lot of ideas on the table, and there's a lot of steps to the process. But really, it was just a full-on commitment that it was going to happen, and that there was going to be no turning back. That was kind of the one major decision that needed to be made, and then from there, it's just been a constant effort of constant improvement.
And real quick, so I can put it in the show notes, what's the name of your book? I've seen it, but I can't remember the name.
Yeah, the book that's easiest to find right now is called The New Rise in Real Estate.
The New Rise in Real Estate.
And,
Okay.
and that one, I've written one chapter of a larger. There's a bunch of real estate leader type folks that wrote one chapter and all contributed. My chapter was originally an entire book that I had written, and the publisher asked me to condense it to one chapter for that book. So that's a good read for anybody thinking about real estate.
And Todd, what are you doing today that will keep you moving forward tomorrow?
Yeah, so there right now I've got two primary focuses. One is certainly on running, managing, and leading my core business here in the Dallas area, and the second is in consulting and leading other small brokerage owners and team leaders around the country, and their complementary focuses. So as I train and coach and lead somebody in Charleston, South Carolina, um, not only am I teaching, but I'm also learning, and so that comes back to the team. And basically, I'm doing market research around the country when I'm discussing things with these other folks, and so I bring back those new ideas, those minor tweaks and improvements here to the team, and then also the team is my laboratory to innovate and try new things. And once they're successful, I'm able to share those with other people, again outside of our market. So those are my two primary focuses. I'm doing more and more speaking, which I really enjoy speaking and writing. I'm working on a couple of other books right now. Our team actually wrote a book together last month, and so we're looking at publishing options for a couple of different book projects right now. I'm doing a little more radio, but one of my major focuses in 2014 is going to be looking for some larger events where I can add some value as a speaker, and to do more and more consulting, which I really really love to do.
Have you ever heard of FinCon?
No, I haven't. That's a new one for me.
I think his name's Philip Taylor. I met him a few weeks ago, and he started a financial bloggers conference, and it was up in somewhere in the Midwest. I can't remember, but that might be something to look out for. But it's about people making money online. Some banks sponsor it, and it wasn't exactly what I do.
Right.
Um, but I met him and he was telling me about it, and then what you just said kind of jogged my memory. But FinCon, you can Google it, I bet, and find it.
Yeah, appreciate
Um,
that. I mean, if anything like that comes up that you feel like we could add some value in, I appreciate those heads up.
sure. Um, since you decided to build your own business, or just in this whole in the context of this whole conversation and what you're doing now as a whole, has there been anything that you've had to stop doing on your way to be successful?
Well, I will tell you that that is certainly an area of weakness for me, is saying no enough. And that's kind of my number one study right now is on focus. So I've read some really, really great books. Gary Keller's got a really great book called The One Thing. Um, and what I need to do better every day is say no to things that I want to do. I'm a natural guy, wanting to jump in and get involved and lead, and that's a great thing, but it can be a detriment. So the answer is yes. I've really had to cut back. I don't play softball with my buddies anymore. I don't go to near as many concerts and things like that. I've got two little kids and a wife that I love a lot, and deeply involved in our church and Young Life with youth ministry, and here in the business. And really, between those three or four or five things, that takes up pretty much every ounce of energy I've got. And I usually expend as much as possible and burn the candle at both ends. But I love it. I like being busy. I like being involved in a lot of different things. But there is a point where you hit capacity and you start to lose effectiveness in all those areas. And so I'm always trying to be conscious of that. And I've been a part of a couple other membership type organizations that I've literally had to just to pull out of and just say, look, I don't have the availability to be effective and to be a solid contributor here. I mean, even things as little as I used to get like 4 or 5 magazines a month, and I read 4, 5, 6 books a month, and I canceled the subscription to a couple of magazines because they're just turning into a stack on my desk. I don't read them anymore because they're just not top priority. So even as simple as what you're watching, what you're reading, where you're going, where you're spending your time, having season tickets to the Baylor games are priority for us, but that means there's going to be some other things that we just can't do on the weekends. So yeah, I think saying no for a busy business owner and leader is sometimes more important than saying yes. There's a big Steve Jobs quote buried in there, and a lot of other, Warren Buffett is the king of, not even having a computer in your office, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think saying no to the right things is just as important as saying yes to the right things.
Masterminds and mentor groups, yes or no?
Yes, yes, yes,
Are you in any right now?
absolutely. If you're familiar with Dan Kennedy at all,
Uh huh. From you. You told me about him.
All-time great marketers, especially in small business, direct response style marketing, sales copywriting kind of world. His organization is called GKIC, Glazer Kennedy Insider Circle. Anybody passionate about marketing or small business development would be crazy not to take them up on their free trial. I don't get anything for telling you that. It's just had a big impact on me. But through that organization, there's a couple of different mastermind groups for small business owners, and I was involved in one 2013, and I'm joining another in 2014 that are very, very exciting groups of highly productive small business owners. That I'm really looking forward to this new group for 2014.
Awesome. What was the last movie that you saw?
Oh man, that's a painful question to answer because I love movies and I used to go to like two a week, and I've got two little kiddos now, so I don't go to near as many. But
Sorry to rub it in.
yeah, that's painful. I have to tell you the truth here though. My wife believes that the movie Serendipity is a Christmas movie. I would argue that it is not a Christmas movie. That there's like two very short scenes in the movie that are around Christmas time. But anyway, the other night we watched Serendipity just as kind of a stay-at-home date night, and it's a good little cheesy romantic comedy that may or may not qualify as a Christmas movie.
I'll make sure she
Yeah,
listens to this so that we can debate that. We always listen to Love Actually. That's kind of been our Christmas movie for the last few years, and
that's a borderline one too. So apparently I'm in the minority on what qualifies as a true Christmas movie. But
well, I think here in Texas, anytime we see snow, we associate it with Christmas,
right.
and so there's there's a lot of snow in that one. But in all fairness, Love Actually does have like countdown to Christmas, so it actually does talk about it a little bit.
I'm a big movie quote guy, so in our office, everybody knows that if you ask me a question, there's a very high likelihood that it will be answered with a movie quote or a song lyric, and then that will have to be unpacked to a normal answer. But I'm a big quote guy, so it's kind of funny thing around here.
Todd, what is one tip or piece of advice that you can give people like me who are just starting out or wanting to take their career to the next level or wanting to start their own business? What's one piece of advice that you could give us?
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll share that with you, and then I'll provide a resource if you want. You can edit this out if you don't want to. I don't care, but I should have come up with a quick domain, but I didn't. So if you folks want to check out DallasHomeRealty.com/our core values, I think having a stated written core value list is an extremely important step to the process of really building something great. And that might sound really cheesy and it might be way less than what a lot of your people were hoping for there. But I would tell you that if you really don't know what you stand for as a professional, you will find yourself getting outside of the boundaries of what is right for you. You'll find opportunity dragging you beyond your ethics, beyond your the boundaries of what is best for you and your family, and it can be a very scary thing that your biggest fear becomes not am I going to be able to make the money that I need to, but is the opportunity for money going to make me somebody that I no longer want to be. So that might ring true, a little closer to home for some people than for others, but I believe really knowing what your core professional values are is really, really important. And to some extent, those really should not change. Some of the minor details of that might change over time, but your values are something that, for the most part, aren't going to change from day to day. Your quarterly plan, your business plan, your goal, your mission statement for a business can change and evolve, but what you value and what you consider to be right and true really should be firm, and it's important to know those things going forward. So I've had a lot of people that have wanted a copy of ours. I've had some people even offer to buy it, which it's not it's not for sale. You can have it, but you can track it back to that link at dallashomerealty.com/our-core-values, or you might be able to, you could pull up a little tiny URL or something and provide notes. But
I'll put it in the show notes, and I might even read it if that's all right with you. And before I start the playback of our conversation, I might read it because I read it, maybe a year or so ago, shortly after you started sharing it, and you and I talked then about how important it was. And honestly, I think without reading this, but just what you said is some of the best advice that I feel like I've gotten on the show. If you don't know what you stand for as a professional, whether you're an employee of a large corporation, a small one, or starting your own business, if you don't know exactly who you are and what you stand for, it'll be much easier to stray from that and fall off to the side or get sidetracked, or whatever you said was, I loved what you said, and I'm going to go back and listen to it. And of course, it'll be quoted on, I don't know what episode this will be, but it'll be quoted on the show notes for this episode. And of course, your link will be there. And like I said, I may go through and read it to everybody just so that they can hear it before we go into the interview, because what you say there is, I really enjoyed reading it, felt value in it, and I liked it a lot. Todd, if someone wanted to reach out to you and say thanks for being on the Empowered Podcast, where could we go and find you online?
Yeah, so the link I just shared is an easy way to find kind of the main real estate side of the business website. ToddTramonte.com kind of gets you to the front door, and you can go left to real estate or right to consulting. Those are easy places. And then there's a contact tab on each of those places that can get an email to me or get you a phone number for the office. So that's probably easiest, is just checking out ToddTramonte.com or following that link to the core value sheet. And that'll give you an option to email or call, whichever you prefer. I'm not too terribly hard to get a hold of, but usually there's one person in front that can set up a call or get an email to me or something like that. I'm happy to help any of your listeners any way that I can and help them take a step towards their dreams.
Awesome, Todd. Thank you so much for being on the show. Stay warm today.
Yeah, you too, buddy. Take care. Have a great one.
Todd, thank you again for spending time with me. I know it's a much warmer time of year now, but I'm glad you warmed up. I've since gotten to see Todd in person, been able to see his offices and see the business that he's built, and it's pretty cool to be able to see what your old college colleagues are up to now. I mentioned this in last week's podcast, or actually it's 2 weeks ago. If you go to empoweredpodcast.com/EP25, as in Empowered Podcast 25, you'll get to hear that episode. I encourage you to listen to it. It's not as long as some of the other ones, but it's about comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. And it's really great to see the success that Todd is having. One thing that he mentioned that I want to make sure that you hear one more time, and it's also something that I'm working on one of the girls that I'm coaching right now, and it's saying no to things. And so often we say yes because we want to help other people. Somebody asks us to help, we say yes. Or we want to be agreeable or things like that. But I want to share with you a quote that I heard. And if you've listened to several episodes of the show here, the Empowered Podcast, you might have heard me say this before, or a couple of my guests say this before, but you have to learn to say no to the good things in life so that you can say yes to the great things in life. No to the good things so you can say yes to the great things. And that's what I want to leave you with today, is just figure out something that you can say no to. Put yourself as a priority, whether you're a mother, a father, an employee of a large company, or an owner of a small one. Remember to put yourself first, because nobody's going to come along and say, look, Ellery, look, Todd, it's time for you to focus on yourself, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish in your personal development. Nobody's going to do that for you. And I would just encourage you to say no to the good things so that you can say yes to the great things. If you do have a great thing that you have said yes to, and especially if you've had to say no to a good thing, let me know what that is. Leave a comment at empoweredpodcast.com/EP26, which is the show notes page for this episode. Tweet me at EmpoweredEllery. Check me out on Facebook. Just let me know what great thing you've had the opportunity to say yes to. And if you are looking for a personal development coach to help you get to the next level, to help you just focus all of your thoughts and just push away some of the distractions, and have someone encouraging you and helping keep you accountable and help you get to that next level, check me out, empoweringthe80%.com. Go to empoweringthe80%.com/coach. That's empoweringthe80%.com/coach. We might be a good fit. What I have to offer and how I can help you may be exactly what you're looking for. If you go to that link, just fill out some information. We'll get on a quick Skype call. There's no obligation. We'll just see if we can partner together and help get you to the next level and help you live the life that you want to live and you think you can. You just don't know how to get there. I want to thank our sponsor, whatsnextblogging.com, for sponsoring this episode. Go to whatsnextblogging.com/free and you can get almost any single how-to video created, especially customized for you at whatsnextblogging.com/free. Not going to give you a preview of the next episode because I don't even know exactly who that will be just yet. It will be a surprise for all of us. Thanks for hanging out with me today. This is the Empowered Podcast, and I'm your host, Ellery Wells. It's been great talking to you and sharing Todd's story. We'll see you next week.